Well, everyone, welcome to another episode of a Sky U Pod post game episode. I'm Spencer, and the Gophers just had a great victory, 23-10 over the Buffalo Bulls. Um, today was, I think, a good victory. Um, Obviously, you're gonna have those, you know, game one sort of yips, if you will, as they call them in baseball. Um, but I think ultimately we've learned what we wanted to learn with these Golden Gophers. And with you all today, I wanted to see where we were at from play to play. So let's start. Um, yeah, and obviously chime in the comments what you all think. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I think this was a good first showing for the Golden Gophers. There's a growing pains, as you will, with the first opener game. Obviously, we have a new offensive line that's kind of gelling together. A lot of plug and play for a lot of our guys in new places. Drake Lindsay obviously is the new quarterback of the team, who I thought played outstanding. I know that there was that interception in the first quarter, maybe a second quarter. I don't know. We'll get into that a little bit. Darius Taylor obviously is still the stud that we know he is. Um, but again, we'll get into that. But let's sort of start from the beginning here. I'm just looking at the play by play on the ESPN app. Let's start in the first quarter. So we know that the Gophers kicked off to start, and right out the get go, we saw the Gophers defense, right? I thought that they were tremendous the whole game. To see them flying towards the ball, letting everything in front of them was great. However, it seemed towards the end of the game, specifically towards the end of the second quarter and onwards, they're kind of giving up those medium pass plays. I know that you all probably saw that, but I thought that they kind of had everything together up until that point. But let's see what they did here. First off, they started great. The only problem was Devin Eastern, right? Offsides, 5 yard penalty, the second play of the game. But right off the bat, there's a sack. And that sack was from your very own, and you know that that Yogi is cheering on. And Nick's in here. Win is a win. Drake is going to be special. We're going to get totally into that, Nick. And I'm sorry if I'm a little obliterated here. I'm just I'm trying. I just had a good time watching the game. Um I think all right, let's just talk about we won't even go by play by play. We'll have it a happy hour sort of session. Nick, if you're out there, Drake Lindsay is a dude. Let's just be honest. He was putting the ball right where it should have been every time. And unfortunately, I feel like our receivers were just sort of dropping it. They weren't really dropping it, right? Bobbling. But I guess I'm sort of a hard ass, if you will. If you're gonna get a dime dropped in just like that, you got to catch it with purpose, right? You can't let that ball, you can't bobble it. These days, cameras got everything, right? You got to catch everything and you got to make it look like you've caught the ball. And I thought that Lindsay, he put it wherever it needed to be. And the receivers, unfortunately, either dropped the ball or they bobbled the ball that ended up in a drop. And unfortunately, that was terrible, you know, frankly. But I think that Lindsey is going to be that guy. He played a tremendous game, and yeah, I'm just thrilled with what I saw from him in this first game. Um, yeah, I guess let's. Where do we want to start off here, fellas? Defensively, I thought they were good. You know, when we look at it, how at the start of the game they were stopping everything, and I thought that this would have been maybe a long night for the Bulls, but honestly, once it got to the second quarter, they kind of started to pick it up at the end of the second quarter, and um, they kind of made it a little interesting as we got the turn of the second half. Um, but let's kind of break it down. I'm just gonna do this quarter by quarter and go from there. Um, so we know that the first drive that the Buffalo Bulls had, again, Eastern, had that offsides penalty that was, unprecedented. He's one of the veteran guys that we don't need that from. Um, but it's the jitters. We get it. But then Anthony Smith, right? He just comes in, gets the sack, and he had a tremendous, tremendous game tonight, right? I mean, Kurt was saying it all off season, and Yogi, who's one of our listeners, was in on it as well. And I mean, he is just a stud. He's probably one of our top, you know, defensive linemen on this squad, along with Eastern. I'm just so happy about it. Um, uh, Nick comes off again with also came away with the game very impressive. Buffalo is going to be a MAC contender for the MAC championship. I bet you they'll be in the championship game this year. A lot of the experts are talking about Toledo are going to be probably one of the rivals this year, but I totally agree, Nick. Um, I think that um, Buffalo is going to be the team. How about their stud that John was talking about? What was his name? Um, Gosh, let me look at his name. I'm already forgetting. Just a stud. Murdoch. Gosh, Murdoch was a beast from Buffalo. He really was. I mean, everything that John was right. I mean, Murdoch from Buffalo was everything that John said during our preview episode, um, with him. Um, he just seemed to be involved in every play, was disruptive. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a chance in the NFL. It seems to always be those guys that are under the radar. They're not at the big schools. They're at a team like the MAC, right? That are explosive, impressive, disruptive, that are no name, but they end up coming into the NFL that just explode. So, all of our listeners, I want you to know that name, Murdoch. If Murdoch becomes one of those dudes in the NFL, rightfully so. He's a great player. Um, but I think along with that is Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith played tremendously today. And I don't think we talked about him enough this offseason. Let's see what he had on the defense. Um, Two total tackles. He had a he had one solo. They're giving him half a sack and a tackle and a half for loss. and a pass defended, but it seemed like he was so disruptive during the whole game, and I'm just so happy for him. And Yogi, if you're out there listening, I think it's your nephew. He is a tremendous player, and we're so happy to have him. Um, it was just awesome to see the defense get after it. And I think that, defensively, it seems like this every year. Defensively, they're just going to kind of grow throughout the year. Um, and hopefully that's the same with the offense. Usually it's kind of a slow start with the offense as we go on through the year. Let's talk about it. That first quarter, Darius Taylor, let's talk about him. Um, Tremendous, as always. Um, I don't know what else to say about him. The only thing that I gotta say with PJ is we cannot run him 30 to 40 times a game because historically, the past 2 seasons, if we do that, he gets injured. And it's not necessarily his fault, but I mean, any back that's run to the ground 30 to 40 times is probably going to get injured. Um, I mean, he ran for 141 yards on 30 carries tonight. Um, I mean, we still have 11 games to go. 30 carries a game I mean, it's a lot to ask for a bat. And I think that, what we saw from, our other backs, right? AJ Turner, he seems like a really competent back. You got Cam Davis as well. I mean, I think that you do have a lot of good backs behind Darius Taylor that can make some plays. I just don't know. You know how PJ likes that trust factor in a lot of his guys. And I think that AJ Turner does deserve that look to be that, we always talked about that 1A, 1B back situation, right? Obviously, Darius Taylor is that 1A, if not 1AA. Cam Davis definitely has that 1B attitude with him. He had 6 carries, 16 yards. You know, I think that he is a good back, but um, we got to see a little bit more from him, and I don't want to see him solely running 30 carries a game. Nick again. Darius was fantastic. Confused why they left him in towards the end. Yeah, was a little worried about. Yeah, I mean, Nick. I mean, let's be honest. Let's talk how it is. Truly, past 2 years he's been injured, right? Why would we risk arguably our best offensive player, right? If we're being honest, why would we risk him getting injured again, especially against a Buffalo team who is solid, like we just mentioned? But I mean, if you're up 23 to 10 or to 13, whatever it was, if you're up kind of knocking on the door, end of the game. Why not just put in some of your backup guys like AJ Turner, like Cam Davis, run up the gut just to run off some time to save the legs of a Darius Taylor for when we get into Big Ten play or the rest of the season, right? I agree totally. Nick, you also say maybe the thought is he can take essentially a week off next week. Yeah, I think that's a great point. So looking ahead, obviously we're playing Northwestern State, the Demons. ESPN has us as a 99% favorite. I don't think I've ever seen a bigger favorite um, for the Gophers ever. I don't know what that Bowling Green loss was, but it's probably up there with that. So we can never overlook a team right after that Bowling Green loss. Unfortunately, that was a number of years ago. But I agree. I do think that maybe I think that the first half you have to play your starters, maybe the quarter, and then you get the reserves in. Um, but I guess we'll get to it when we get to it. Um, but let's talk back to the game. First quarter, right? Kind of dull, right? I mean, and I think that that's what you're gonna get with the initial, like the first game of the season, right? Wrinkle out the worries of the game. This is new year. You're worried. Fortunately, this isn't a game against like an Ohio State. I do think it's interesting. Like when you have these first games of the year, I think that teams that are expected to lose have the mentality where they're saying, "Oh, we have nothing to lose. Let's just try our hardest," and they play well. And the teams that are expected to win are like, "All right, we have everything to lose. We got to try our hardest not to do anything that's going to mess this up." And I think that the Gophers had the latter of that. However, they did win, I think, well, 23-10 against a good MAC team. I think that it's fine. But there is definitely some things that they need to wrinkle out. Um, yeah, after their first, drive, you know, on offense, the Gophers that is, you know, we saw Coy right off the bat, which was so surprising. I thought that he would get wrinkled in maybe on a third down or maybe a second and long. They got him in right away, and maybe that was just to add to the drama. You know, I don't know. Like they're saying, "Oh, we told you he's going to be in our offenses." Blah blah blah. He was really in there from the get go, and I think my problem with it was, you know, they're saying, "Okay, he's in, so we got to tailor our defense to that." Which is fine, but if you keep having him in there and he's not going to be in there on the next play, I feel like a defense will be like, all right, let's just not worry about Coy and let's worry about the run. Or let's say, all right, let's worry about a little pass play here. I feel like it kind of gives the defense a reason to say, all right, here's what we're going to do since he's off the field. But at the same time, an argument against that is saying, all right, uh, Coy isn't, a guy. This is the first time he had that great first pass play, right? That we saw, um, that Lindsey threw to him, for a 12-yard game for the first down. So I guess off the bat, you kind of worry, all right, this guy's a dude. But I would have liked to see earlier on some of the other guys like Javon Tracy, etc. Um, but I kind of like seeing Coy get in there to see the wrinkle to kind of get the defense off balance, if you will. Um, and we'll see how that goes for the next weeks. Nick says that fluke interception gets taken away. I think a lot of fans' worries most disappear. That was insane. I totally agree, Nick. Let's get to that. We look at the first quarter, right? And not much happens. We had that nice Coy Parrot, you know, 12-yard gain, Darius runs, AJ Turner goes in, he gets 2 yards. Jalen Smith gets the first down. Or you know, we punt the ball 45 yards, which let's say this. All right. We've always, as a podcast, given special teams such a hard time. But how about Tom Weston punting and what's his name? Gosh, why am I forgetting? I shouldn't forget his name. Oh, suck up. My friend Andrew Wadowitz said Suck up deserves a scholarship. I agree. I mean, pinning them inside the 10 was great. I mean, that's what we wanted, right? From special teams from the get-go. And they did just that. So that was an awesome first kind of special teams moment. Buffalo goes in. They didn't do much. Defense, as always, does well. They punt, and then they get us on downs. Um, Let me remember this here. Um, that's right. The drop passes. I think we have to address that. Comparatively to last year, um, and here goes John. Uh, John Karuba. Hey, this Buffalo team, John, I got to tell you, they're going to be pretty formidable in the MAC. And I don't know much about this Toledo team, but I got to say, great team. Murdoch, like you said, is a champ, and yeah, good luck the rest of the year. Um, they're a good team. I think that at the end of the day, if there's Gopher fans out there that are kind of disappointed how we played, Mac players, and I'm kind of going off tangent here. Mac players, these are the guys that likely wanted to go to a Big Ten school but couldn't make it, so they went to the MAC. So they got that chip on their shoulder to prove that they are that guy. And I got to tell you, they play hard and they want to win every game that they play. And I think it showed with this Buffalo team. They had some good guys playing. They wanted to win this game. They weren't scrubs. These guys were great. And I think that they definitely have a good chance at winning the MAC this year. Um, Experts are predicting Buffalo against Toledo again to be in the MAC championship, and I think that that's right. This Buffalo team's great, and John, you were right. I think you have a great team this year. So and thank you for joining us earlier this week on breaking down this team. Um, but yeah, back to the game. If we're talking about special teams. Nick again brings up, you know, Denneberg with a great night too. Yeah. I mean, I, thank goodness, right? It's just really nice to have just solid special teams that you can just rely on. Denneberg, did he go two, three for three, right? I mean, 3 for 3 on the night is great. Last year we had, I'm already forgetting his name, Dragon Kesic. Um, he was an all Big Ten at some point, and we thought that he was the guy, but it seemed like he kind of got the yips a little bit, right? And now, this guy, Denneberg, goes 3 for 3. It's not easy to do. Even I know that, we think it's money. I think a lot of us are used to watching the NFL where they can just cash it in, right? 30 yards. But these are, teenagers, maybe 20 years old, that probably can't do it as well. But at the end of the day, if that's all you do, I expect you to make it, right? And he did a great job doing that. So, um, yeah, it was awesome. Um, After the first quarter, to be honest, I don't really know. Like that it just wasn't a lot. The defense was tremendous. I thought that they did well. But let's get in the second quarter when things got well. Um, Gears, right? Seems like he's gonna be one of the number one options. Gears has that 7 yard, first down. He had a 15 yarder. Um, and then, Gears gets the 9 yard touchdown. I mean, just tremendous. He's a good player. He does drop the ball, and I said this in the preview. I got to give a shout out to Kurt. Kurt, one of the Sky U Pod members. He said that he thinks is going to be a tight end ruled sort of offense, and I think he's right. I really do. And these tight ends are great. The one problem that I had with Gears was the drops, and I think tonight we saw that. We gotta eliminate those drops, Gears. Um, and yeah, Nick again says, any point tonight that I panicked? It's a great question, Nick. I gotta admit, no, I don't. I don't think so. Like, obviously, when it got a little close, when it got to 10-13, in the third, I, at the end of the day, yeah, it's a close game, but it just seemed like we knew how to win the game. Like the Gophers had been in this space before. Now I was confident that they'd get it done. I wasn't worried. I would say that I wouldn't even say that I was disappointed. I really do think that this Buffalo team's a good team. I really do. What were the Gophers sloppy? Definitely. The drops are unacceptable. There were some mishaps on defense as well. I feel like there's blown coverages a little bit. I felt like we were giving way too much up for this team. Um, Especially like at the end of the second and into the second quarter and into the second half. Um, I I don't know what was wrong. Just kind of blown coverage and everything. Um, you know, Curdy, he was at the game tonight. He's probably going home right now, and he can probably break it down a little better than I can. He's a guru. But it just seemed like there was a little bit of breakdown on the defense um, when it came to throwing the ball on this Buffalo team. Granted, their quarterback, um, you know, Taquan Robertson, I think that he was the quarterback for Penn State, Kansas State. I mean, he's been a lot of places. He's a solid athlete, so he can make it happen. But I would have liked to seen a little bit more from the secondary protecting the ball. But it was like that mid-game sort of passing, that involves the linebackers with Baranowski and everything. Also, Baranowski looked like he got a little injured, which is a little worrisome, right? But hopefully he can come back from it and go from there. Um, yeah, Ski U Pod in the car right now. That's Curdy. In the car right now. I'm sure that Curdy is with his brother right now, who both of them likely have strong opinions on the game. So Kurt or Treg, whoever's driving, go ahead and tell the passenger to comment in here. What were your takeaways of the game? What did you think being there live? I thought that it was an all right showing. Lindsey, I think that he is that guy. Defensively, I thought did great. They did let up a lot of things in the secondary. I thought the passing game on the Buffalo team kind of tore it up a little from the second half, second quarter, and then on. Otherwise, I think that the Gophers did okay. You know, um, like Nick said, I really do like that Denneberg was ice cold doing his thing. Um, Also, what was nice was after the punt from Buffalo, right? in the fourth when Drake Lindsay just hit Jalen Smith for the 60-yarders. What? All right, let's just be honest. The breakout plays, we missed you. We missed you. Thank goodness for a 60-yarder to start off a drive for a touchdown. So I guess, Nick, to your point, was I panicked? No, but that 60-yarder certainly helped with my panic. Um, Coming from Curdy, D-line was carried by Smith and Eastern. Certainly, definitely. I was just saying at the top of the hour when we started this, Anthony Smith is a beast. I mean, he just can get in there and he's going to make a play. Eastern, he's disruptive. Only critique I have on him was that first drive, obviously, when he jumped off sides. But it ended up not even mattering because it was a three and out regardless. Yeah, I mean, up front, we're going to need a little bit more up front um, on defense. And we thought, preseason, we thought that we might get a little bit more, from some of the guys. We didn't really see a whole lot of that, especially against a Buffalo team. Again, they're great, but I would think that we would kind of see a little more disruption. They really made a lot of good pass plays. And again, we know that Taquan Robertson was a guy that was at Penn State. He's been a lot of places and he's a good athlete, but still we would think that, you know, be a little bit more. But yeah. Um Again, Curtis saying thought the O line has a lot of work to do, but got better as it went. I agree. Um, as a first game, I think that they're better off than what they were last year. Obviously we're plugging in some players in where they've never played before. Additionally, it's just a kind of a whole new offensive line. And I think what Darius was able to do, um, I thought that it was all right, Taylor, he had 141 yards. He didn't have any touchdowns. He had that 18-yard long. He did have 30 carries though. So he averaged almost 5 yards a carry, which is great. Um, but it would be great to not have him tear himself up um, every game, especially going into Big Ten play. Um, but I'm all right with how the offensive line did. Obviously, next week we're gonna have a good idea how they're gonna do. It's not really a great test, unfortunately. I'd like to see how they're gonna do against Cal, but yeah, they got a little work to do. Uh, Curdy again, or his brother, saying Buffalo is good at creating negative plays, so it's a decent test. I agree. I think that they had some dudes. Again, Murdoch, Curdy, if you're listening, that Murdoch dude, like John was saying during our preview episode, that guy is a dude. I think that he's going to be probably invited to the NFL Combine. Is going to be one of those late draft picks that's going to kind of be a gem that's going to make a 53-man roster and be an NFL dude. I just have that feeling that he's going to be one of those dudes. It seemed like he was all over, whether that be sacking the quarterback, getting his arms up, etc. Um, yeah, he was outstanding. And again, I think that this Buffalo team is going to be a MAC contender. I think that they'll probably be in the MAC championship, I guess, against Toledo. Um, and if for some reason where they're only lost this year, maybe they could make the college football championship. Um, I don't want to say doubtful because no shame to that, but hard to predict that with all the drama going on with the CFP, but let's just take it game by game and see. Um, yeah, from there, let's see. I don't know. Let's talk about the Lindsay interception. Anyone that's listening out there, what do we think? Do we think that that is a problem with Lindsay, or is that just a play, that mishap, unlucky? What is it? Beforehand, though, let's see what Kurt has to say. Was surprised how little Coy played at receiver, how much he played it at the start. Right. It's almost like I was thinking that too. It's almost like they're like, see, we told you he's going to get involved. He's going to get involved. And that at the end of the day, like, we'd all forget, like, oh, yeah, he was playing. He was playing. And like, we weren't going to watch the rest of the game to see if he was going to get involved. Um, yeah, he had that great, I think, 12-yard catch that we saw for the first down, which is awesome. Um, I admittedly, I was a little worried that he was gonna play like that the whole game, ahead of some of our, wide receiver studs that I think that we have. But I think that they just were doing that for the show, if you will, or maybe to throw off Buffalo. I don't know. I don't know what PJ was thinking, but probably along the lines of that. Uh, John says Minnesota's defense was tremendous this game, so impressive. Yeah, I think John. Yeah, again, I think that Buffalo has a great chance to being MAC champions. Defensively, this is one of the squads that we didn't really have a lot of worry about this year. Maybe well, no, no, no. Maybe the linebacker core. We had a little bit of worry, and I think it showed today. Baranowski now getting hurt. I don't know how that's gonna end up. Wouldn't be surprised if he sits out next week. Cormo, however, that guy, true freshman, got to tell you, that guy is going to be special. Awesome to see him getting into some plays and playing as much as he did. Um, I think he's going to be a stud. Um, but otherwise, I think the secondary is great. I think that they still got some work to do. We did just give up some of those short pass plays, and I know that sometimes we drop Anthony Smith in the backfield, some of our defensive line in the backfield. Sometimes we worry about that because we have five studs that are in the secondary with Coy and et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know. I think we'll kind of see how it goes. Nick, big time fluke on the interception. Ref actually missed PI, actually shoved gears down before the pass was even there. That's what I heard the announcers saying. I wasn't there in person, Nick. Maybe Kurt can touch on that a little bit because he was there. Because from a TV standpoint, it looked like he was down. And I did send a text, I was like, how was he down? Did he just get pressed to a point where he was brought to his knees? Which I know that it was either a linebacker or a defensive guy that, I mean, it wasn't a cornerback who obviously pressed gears, like pancaked him essentially, right? Like a cornerback isn't going to pancake gears to his knees, unless it's a PI. But it seemed like to be that 99, 98 guy, whoever it was, who was like a linebacker or a D end or whoever it was that cracked him or something. So unfortunately, even if it was, you can't walk it back with video evidence. So the play goes. So either way, kind of stunk. Just unfortunate with Lindsay, who I thought had a tremendous game. The way he can drop the ball wherever he wants it was awesome, and I think that is just a blemish where it shouldn't be. Right? I don't think that should go on his record because It's a kicked ball from Gears into the hands of a Buffalo defender that brings it back. Shout out to Darius Taylor though from catching him from behind for preventing the touchdown. Right? I think we got a different ball game if he doesn't catch him. Right? So yeah. Um, yeah. Looks like John just shouting you out, Nick. It's a good game. John also saying replay appeared to me that was the case on the interception. Sure. Um, Courtier's brother saying didn't see it was looking at wide receivers. Probably something that we were talking about before. Don't remember. Go ahead and comment again, Curdy. Um, and John says 99 for the Bulls is Cornell Evans, by the way. Yeah. And that's what happened during that Gears kicked interception play. Um, yeah, I don't know. But Drake Lindsay, 19 for 35, 290 yards, two touchdowns, one interception for your first game as a Gopher. I think we got a dude. What do you guys think? I think that he is probably the guy. I know that on ESPN they like to say 50% passer rate, completion percentage. This is about 54, 55% completion percentage. But again, this is college. And given what's happened in this game, who really knows? Um, I thought that he was putting it where it needed to be. There were drops, right? I gotta admit, shout out to Kurt if you're listening. Treg, your brother was saying how he thought it was going to be a tight end game, and certainly was. I thought that they were probably the number one receivers this whole game, right? I mean, you have Gears, you have Bieber or I don't know what his last name, Bieber. Uh, Gears had four receptions. Bieber only had one, but the Gears had a touchdown, and Bieber had that one, reception. But the drops are unbearable. And I said this during our pregame show. I think that he has a great chance of being kind of like another Max Williams. Maybe, I mean, I know that's going far, but the drops, unacceptable. I just cannot take drops. I can't. And it's not just from the tight end's perspective. It's the receivers, right? The bobbles. Just secure the ball, tuck it, play it. I think that this game is totally different if you just catch the ball, right? I think we all can agree with this. Nick, you asked me if I was worried. I don't think that's even a question from you if the ball's caught from some of those receptions, right? I mean, because likely if you're not at least scoring a touchdown on those drives, you're getting 3 points, right? Got to catch the ball. Um, yeah. Um, Great sportsmanship between Nick and John. Yeah, John, I think that you got a team that's gonna. I hope you win the MAC. Personally, I really do. Um, I know that's a biased opinion, but I hope you do. You're a good guy. You got a great team that you're rooting for, and good luck the rest of the season. Pretty jumping in. I've seen enough. Drake is going to be a stud. Wideouts need to step it up for him. I totally agree. Um, I thought that we finally got him involved in the second half. Um, admittedly, maybe I wasn't paying as much as attention because, you know, But what I'll admit is, I think that in the second half, we did finally get a lot of them involved. Um, you know, Jalen Smith, for one, he did have that drop that was frustrating. He did have a good touchdown. Two receptions for 76 yards. Javon Tracy, three receptions for 71. Gears is in there, obviously. Darius Taylor. Lemecki, to your point, Curdy or Treg, I'd like to see him involved more. Two receptions for 30 yards. We need to see him kind of taking the lead role, being a veteran. But maybe he's just not like maybe that's just not him. I don't know. Um, Logan Loya, great. Two receptions, 18 yards. And then Coy, obviously, with that one reception for 12. Um, Coy, if he had a touchdown for like a 30-yard sweet touchdown or screen, that'd be great, right? But I agree. I think our receivers need to get a little more involved. But unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to see that until Cal, maybe. Um, we'll see. Um, yeah, I don't know. Looking again, really, I don't really know what was frustrating. Usually, there's that timeout that PJ usually has that's frustrating. Didn't really see that this game. It's the first game of the season. Nick, you mentioned if I ever got worried. Not really, to be honest. Um, Admittedly, I felt that way up against Bowling Green years ago, and once once the whistle blew at the end of the fourth quarter, it was like, "Damn, this actually happened." Um, but no, I think that I personally think that the Gophers played a good game. Do they have work to do? Sure, of course. I think that we all could agree with that. But I think my eyes are certainly on Drake Lindsay, new quarterback, the offensive line. Um, and I think that they did well for a first game. Drake Lindsay showed us that he can drop a ball pretty much wherever it needs to be. I think that he's done that. Yeah, he's a rookie quarterback, right? But he threw some dimes, and I'm impressed with what he did. Receivers gotta again, like Kurt said, they got to catch the ball a little bit more. We got to see a little bit more from them. They got to step up. Tight end room, like with Gears, I think that they did well. They did well blocking too. I mean, I don't think that we give enough credit to the tight end position for what they do. Not only do they run routes, but they do a tremendous job blocking, right? And I would talk about Darius Taylor, but we already know that he's probably the most important player on this team. Again, 30 carries, 141 yards, no touchdowns, but averaging almost 5 yards a carry. I mean, you just can't overlook that. So, um, yeah. Uh, yeah, Curdy says red zone play calling was suspect. I feel like isn't that always the case with this team? Seems like whether it's when we need to score the ball, right? Whether that's a 2-minute offense or whether that's a red zone offense, we can't do it. I will admit, at the end of the second half, the Gophers they were trying to score. I wanted to get that touchdown, but Drake took that 11-yard sack that ended up in that Denneberg 38-yard field goal, which is great to get the field. At least any points, right, matter. I'm glad that. again, Denneberg was 3 for 3, I believe. Um, but I agree. Gotta get better when it matters to get points on the board, and I don't know, like, when it comes down when it comes down to when we're playing, the Wisconsins, the Iowas, the Big Ten opponents, when you need to score points, you have to score points. You have to. And there's no better way at getting that practice in than now against a Buffalo team or next week or against Cal or whoever. Kurt says they knew the fade was coming every time. They really did. Shout out to Buffalo's defensive backs. I think all of them were returning. Um, and John, you can shout out here if you know. I think that all of their secondary players are returning players, and they were great. I mean, they got their hand in every play. I mean, they were. I mean, they showed it you know, on TV on Fox that you know Lindsey was putting it where it should be, but these Buffalo defenders are just getting their hands right where the ball was going to end up. Really, you know, defending the ball. I mean, nothing as a receiver, really nothing you could do. I guess as a quarterback, just trying to put it where a receiver can catch it, where where a defender can't defend it. Obviously, that's kind of NFL status, but with Lindsay, I think he put it where it needed to be, and yeah, I just think that this Buffalo team is better than I, I just think that they're better than people might give it credit for. Not our viewing crew, but maybe nationally. I think that they're going to be Mac, you know, maybe Mac champions. Definitely in the runnings for being Mac champions. You know, keep an eye out for this team. John, it's correct, especially their secondary. Yeah, secondary was great, I thought. Yeah, I thought this Buffalo team was cohesive, and I thought that they knew they had a plan, and I thought that their plan was a good plan, but football happens, right? Mistakes happen, and at the end of the day, team who makes less mistakes wins the game. And obviously, the Gophers probably have a little more talent. Um, but I mean, again, Nick was like, were you ever worried about this game? And there was a time when Buffalo probably could have taken it away. So Toledo, Buffalo, Ohio, those are the top three in the MAC, in my opinion. Yeah, I wish I had more to say to that. I don't really know the MAC that well. Um, but yeah, good news for Buffalo. Ohio also lost 34-31 to Rutgers. You see, here's the thing. I'm glad that you said that, John. The Gophers play Rutgers. I think week four, one, two, three, four. Yeah. So we play them on September 22nd or 7th. I'm sorry. We play Rutgers against and they just played Ohio, who they beat. But again, the MAC teams are teams. I always players from the MAC are players that might have wanted to go to the Big Ten, but couldn't for whatever reason, and they have that chip on their shoulders. and they are just great athletes. They want to prove that they should have been on that level. And usually, if they get drafted, they are tremendous in the NFL. I think MAC players are underlooked when it comes to being, you know, at the end of the day in the NFL, draftable um, prospects in the NFL. And, as in the Big Ten, at least, I worked for the Gophers back when Jerry Kill did back in 15, 16. And he would say this. He would say what I'm saying. And I think that respect that he gave to the MAC kind of translated to the players, at least from Minnesota, um, to say, I mean, these guys are just as good as you. They just didn't make the cut by this much because maybe this guy's film was a little better, right? And so I really do think that I think of the MAC as sort of like a semi Big Ten, if you will. Um, John saying, "Yeah, tired of being disrespected." Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to know who's disrespecting you, I guess. Maybe the media. I wouldn't know what it's like to be a group of five team in this era of college football, if that's what you mean. I would like to see, you know, and I might be getting into muddy waters here. Um, the uh, the college football playoff, I think, is is great, but I do think that teams that aren't in these Power Five, I think that they deserve a chance at glory. We talk about, excuse me, we talk about how you know teams in the NCAA basketball, right? We think back in the day how there's a lot of teams that make it to the big dance, the final four, the elite eight, whatever, right? And that's such a great story, and I think that's what makes college sports so special. And I would like to see that in football, but I think that we're not stray. I think we're straying away from that a little bit. Um, it's hard, right? Because you can't have a 64 team tournament in football. You just can't do that, right? And I know I'm going off tangent from this is more of a Sky U Pod happy hour than a post game thing, but um yeah, I don't know I don't know the answer. I'm not smart enough to know the answer. But um I know that the college football playoff is probably not ideal um for now. I know that it shouldn't reward teams for losing 3 games in a year, regardless of who their schedule is, right? I don't believe that's good. Um, I didn't like the BCS, for example, but I remember one loss was devastating, um, which wasn't always fair, but it just seemed like that was the nature. You were out. If you lost one game, you were out in BCS. And that really, I think, solidified national champions from the others. Um, I don't want to go back to BCS, but you get what I'm saying, I hope. Um, anyways, maybe we'll have a talk about that. someday. Gosh, I have a lot of comments to get here. John, you said, yeah, Ben Roethlisberger, Khalil Mack, exactly right. I think Julian Edelman, he went to Toledo, right? He was a quarterback. No, Kent State. I don't know. Is Kent State in the Mac? He's my Wes Welker, Julian Edelman. They were my favorite NFL players when I was in high school because I was a receiver and they were those gritty small guys. Love them. Um, General, how they were always being picked to be blown out by top 25 teams. I get that. I do. Um, that's a good point. I guess I could see the disrespect from that point. You know, um, but maybe that's the point of top 25, right? Maybe they're a top 25 team. You shouldn't lose to a team that's unranked. Maybe that's their thoughts. I don't know. Dave in the chat, not a lot of use very well against the Mac. Yeah. I guess I'm not sure what you're saying there. We're not the only ones who struggle with the Mac. Right. No, right. Yeah, the Mac's a good conference throughout the Big Ten. We look back, I think it was last year or 2 years ago that Penn State they had trouble with Bowling Green. They almost lost to Bowling Green. Um, yeah, I mean, it's anyone's game in college football. John saying chip on the shoulders definitely exists. Its main point, of course, that's what college football is all about. Boise State losing the Power Five is wide open to make the playoff. I totally agree. That was crazy, to be honest. And if you're in Southern Florida, why not have a chance yourself? Let's look at their schedule. 34-7 against a reigning college football playoff appearance team, right? Uh, they got Florida next week. That's going to be tough at Florida. Um, and then they got Miami. So they're probably not going to make it. But they could if they win those games. They could. Um, Gosh, who's going to make it? My team was Navy. My team was Navy because they got a lot of returners, and I think that they're in front to win the American this year. I'm a Tulane grad from. I have a master's from Tulane. I love Tulane. I think Max picked Tulane to win the American and maybe make a playoff spot. I would love that just from a selfish standpoint, a biased standpoint. But I don't know. I don't think that they can beat this Navy team. Their quarterback's great, and yeah, I don't know. Let's see who else is in here. John says yes. Dave says yes. Kent State is in the MAC East with Buffalo. Yeah, so okay. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois last year. They made a national championship game. I think that as long as you can make the big dance, we'll call it that, the big dance. I think as long as you can make it there, it's anyone's game. Like all you really, if you can make that, it's 0-0. I hate to take a PJ reference and say, all right, it's 0-0. Every week 0-0. All right, let's go 1-0 against the Iowa week, whatever it is. I don't like I get it, but I don't like it. But when you're in the playoffs, does anything that's happened up to that point matter? To be honest, not really, right? You just got to win out, win the next 4 games, and you're national champions. I think of Ohio State, right? How devastating was it to them to lose against Michigan at home? I heard Michigan's fans say, or Ohio State fans saying, this season doesn't matter at all because we lost to them. Even if we win the national championship, it means nothing. Fans of them said that. Now, granted, I think that that's crazy, but I do think that if you make that the playoff, it's anyone's game. Just play hard. Doesn't matter up until that point. Just win out, and you could be national champions. So yeah, Nick, I think you're right. Like, doesn't matter. UB owns a Kent State, so does everyone in the map right now. UB is that? Oh, Buffalo. Yeah, I wouldn't know. Beat Northern Illinois, who beat Notre Dame. Yeah, so maybe maybe UB should have been in the college football national championship game. Navy in the lane. Dave says, "Come down to Navy into the lane in the American." Dave, I think that my prediction is Navy's going to make the college football playoff this year. I could be wrong. Probably will be wrong. Nick says that's the same it is. And Tulane, Dave says Tulane. I think that's Matt. That's Max's pick. Curdy, if you're listening, I don't remember who you picked. Was it Boise? I don't remember, which is a good pick. Even though Boise got destroyed tonight, they could still, I guess, make it, right? Or are they toast? Mm, let's look. Boise State football. I mean, getting destroyed by South Florida is not good, no matter how you look at it. They do play Notre Dame this year. If they somehow beat Notre Dame and went undefeated, do you think that they make it? I don't think you can rule it out. I don't think you can rule it out. I It's a bad loss, I'll admit. It obviously depends on how the rest of the group of 5 teams does. But if you go undefeated as a Boise State fan and you beat Notre Dame, assuming Notre Dame beats Miami this weekend, beats Texas A&M the next weekend, and Purdue and Arkansas. Why not? Why not? Uh, okay. Quarterback needs to look off his primary target sometimes, says Dave. Are you talking about Lindsay, Dave? Or I think that maybe that's probably true. I did think that he could put it where he wanted it to be, but there was times that he put it in where there was a lot of traffic, and we got lucky. Probably can't do that against some Big Ten opponents. Dave says yes. Yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, I think that I think that he did well for your first game. Look, he's playing his first game in front of the students. The great thing that I love about opening night for the Gophers, um, And this was as a freshman. When I went to the University of Minnesota as a freshman and graduated from there. I go there now as a medical student. They give you free tickets to go to the game opening night. All the students, all the freshman students, everyone's there. I mean, if you look back, the student section's rocking right tonight. And so I'm sure as a kid who's just starting his first essentially professional game, right? I guess these days, right? You're getting paid probably to play quarterback at the University of Minnesota. It's a lot of pressure, and I thought that he did really well, but I did think that, like you said, Dave, he did put the ball into traffic where you should not do um, that against, you know, even Cal in a couple weeks. Certainly not in the Big Ten. Can't have that happening. I'm sure that they'll tell him that when they're watching film tomorrow or the next day. I I agree. Um, Nick, side notes, who else was watching or waiting for Nebraska to choke it away tonight? Gosh, I was. I got to tell you, Max was chiming in. I was totally away from the rest of the ball games. Um, but Nebraska, in classic fashion, wins by 3 against Cincinnati. But again, you know, yes, it's probably not what Nebraska fans want, but at the end of the day, like, is Cincinnati such a bad team? I don't know. Are they in the MAC? I don't know. John, are they in the MAC, Cincinnati? I don't know. Um, but historically they've been all right since Fickle was there, and then I know they've kind of been down, but I mean, yeah. We do play Nebraska this year, and I can't wait for it. They're a classic Big Ten West team that I love to beat every year. Um, yeah, I hope that we can continue the tirade that we have over their fans and them. Um, let's see. No, Big 12. That's right. Nick says Big 12. That's right. They are in the Big 12. That's their move. Um, I guess like if you're in the Big 12, you do have to compete with Big 10 schools. I would like to think that Big 10 schools have that edge, right? I guess with where college football is today, there's say Big 10 SEC, they have you know, they are college football. So if you are a Big Ten school, you should beat those opponents. But at the same time, I think you certainly have to respect them, even if it's a new school like Cincinnati or a UCF, right? Um, Speaking of UCF, Scott Frost is the head coach at UCF again. When he had that historic season of 13-0 years ago before he was the head coach at Nebraska, wouldn't it be cool if he went back to Nebraska and just beat them? I know that this is totally off topic, but I'm sure he wants to do that. Yeah. Dave, Nick, John, you're all saying the same thing. Yeah, Nick saying back when the Fickle was the coach there. And, Fickle, speaking of Fickle being at Wisconsin this year, I think that he wants to have that kind of Cincinnati offense at Wisconsin. Remember, what was his name? He's, gosh, I forget that quarterback's name. Anyway, uh, yeah, they were great. They played Alabama. I remember in the college football playoff, it's the first non-power five team in the four-team playoff, whatever, and it was cool. Um, yeah. John says one notable team that used to be in the MAC was UCF. That's right. I think that was when Frost was there long ago when they went 13 and 0. Yeah, Dave says they were one of the original teams. He said, yes, they're so cool. Nick says on another side notes, our opponent, Northwestern State, next week just won their first game since 2022. Hopefully, that high of them winning makes them lose against us next week. um, no, again, like I think especially after that Bowling Green game, I know this was years ago, but you can never overlook any team in college football. You just can't. You just can't. Um, but admittedly, this Northwestern State team probably not good. I'm happy that they won their first game since 2022, but you know when you're that team that's on that high, that you just won, you just got over the hump, you did it, and you play the next game, and it's it just doesn't work out. I think that probably what's going to happen for them. I'd like for that to happen next week. Dave, he got injured against Miami, Ohio, quarterback from Wisconsin. He did he? Do you know how injured? Let me look it up. Let's see. 2-0. Yeah, Dave says out for the first half. Dave, was he out like did he play and then went out for the first half, or was he out just for the first half in general? Do you know? I didn't watch any of that game. Billy Edwards Edzer week one. What we know. Got injured first half when I heard. Didn't come back for the second half. You're right. I actually this just pulled up. Non-contact injury on a rushing play for wide receiver Terrell Henry for 3 yards. Went to the right knee on the handoff. He went to the medical tent, headed to the locker room. Out the rest of the game on a non-contact. I got to tell you, everyone, if you go out for a non-contact injury and you're not in for the rest of the game, probably not good. Granted, I get it these days. If you get hurt and it's all fine, um, and you're playing, if you're Wisconsin playing against, you know, Miami, Ohio, you probably are going to say, all right, let's just deactivate you for the rest of the game. I do understand that, but a non contact injury, not good. And let's be honest. We don't want. I've always wanted to play teams at their best, at their most superior, because there are no doubts, right? If you can beat a team when they're at full strength, no excuses, yada yada. there's no excuse, right? If you beat Wisconsin when they have all their star players playing, they can't say, "Oh, we didn't have so and so. Oh, this or that happened." Blah 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 blah. So, I do hope that he's okay. Um, hopefully he can come out from it. Hopefully it's just like a stinger or something. But usually these non-contact things aren't too good. Nick, you're probably off right now, but good night, man. Thanks for joining in. I know it's late. It's really late, actually. Jeez. Um, yeah. Um, yeah. I don't know. I think that we've kind of touched on a lot of different things college football. This has felt more like a happy hour. Um, I don't know. Anyone else got anything to talk about college football out there? I'm so glad that this is, we're back. Not only at Sky U Pod, but at, college football. We, Max, Curdy, and I think we mentioned this before. We've been friends since high school. I don't even know how many years we've been friends for, many years. Um, yeah, I mean, we love this stuff. We really do. We do. And to see how much college football has transformed since we were kids up until now, it's very interesting. Um, and I guess to share it with you all, to hear your opinions is great too. So we're happy that you're all involved in it and happy that you're all tuning in to our show, and I'm glad that you're a part of it. You're just as much a part of this show as us three, and yeah, I'm happy about it. Any more comments out there? Any more things that you all want to talk about? I got all night. I do. Great to be a okay. So John says, great to be a part of the College Huddle network with you guys. So, John, I'm glad that you brought that up. So, we are a part of the College Huddle. College Huddle is everything college football from podcasts to articles, from literally any school, pretty much, that you could think of. I know that we are missing some, but you go on the collegehuddle.com and you can find any podcast or articles from really any college football team that you could think of, and you could listen in on them. I know that they're trying to grow into college basketball. I don't know how big they are into it. I'd love to cover college basketball for the Gophers, but frankly, it's a little abysmal for the Gophers. So and it would be a lot more time too, but maybe Curdy and Max could take that over. No, I'm just that's just conjecture. But yeah, check that website out. Otherwise, um we would appreciate if you all liked and subscribed to the videos, to our channels. You can get us out on any podcasts that you listen to from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. So you can always search for us out there and like and subscribe there. Um, but otherwise, we appreciate you all for tuning in, as always. Um, we will be back next week previewing the Northwestern game. Um, that is not Northwestern team from the Big Ten, but I think they're Illinois. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't mean just to be disrespectful, but we will be previewing that. We'll get you the next Sky U Pod parlay of the week. I know that I failed this week all of you. So I'm sorry, but next week, if you get your money ready, be ready to bet it on it, and we promise you your parlay will make some money. We'll be back next week to preview the upcoming game, and maybe my friends Max and Kurt will be able to break down what just happened tonight. But anyways, thank you all for tuning in. As always, we love you all, and good night, and go Gophers. Good night, everyone.